Hey there, what's up internet? My name is BlackLightAttack. I'm using the internet, and this is episode 30.5 of Let's Play Final Fantasy VII. This is going to be another tutorial episode, and today we're going to talk about Battle Square and the most easy way, in my opinion, of obtaining Cloud's Final Limit Break Omnislash on Disc 1. Now, there are several points during the game when you can obtain Omnislash, and that is all related to which prizes are available at Battle Square. It's always found at Battle Square, but there are several different times that you can obtain it. Now, in Battle Square, there are 3 different sets of rewards, and those rewards get better as you progress through the game. Now, the first set of rewards is available right after you get out of the Gold Saucer for the first time with the Buggy. If you turn right back around and go back into the Gold Saucer, the first set of rewards will be available. Typically, I don't bother with this because I don't think it's really worth it, but at that time you can get 2 very powerful accessories if you choose to do so. The Championship Belt, which will give you plus 30 Strength and Vitality, which is a huge stat boost at that point in the game, and you can also obtain the Sprint Shoes, which will automatically cast haste on whatever party member is wearing them at the start of the battle. Both very useful to have at that point in the game. I don't think they're necessary at all, but you can go for it if you want. That is the easiest set of battles in the game, but it can be a little bit difficult because your characters are pretty low level. We're going to be focusing on the second set of rewards, and that is going to be available as soon as you obtain the Tiny Bronco. Now, we obtained the Tiny Bronco a little while ago. That's right after the events at Rocket Town when you get Sid Highwind in your party. As soon as you unlock the Tiny Bronco, you have a new set of rewards available, and that includes Omnislash, which was not available earlier. Now, as the rewards get better, the fights do get more difficult, but in my opinion, if you wait till later in the game, it's actually easier to do this. It's much easier to obtain Omnislash as well as the other prizes that unlock later on Disc 2 after you obtain the airship, which is when the final tier unlocks. The reason for that being is even though the battles are more high level, you're fighting tougher enemies, your characters are also higher level, and you also have a lot more powerful equipment at your disposal at that point in the game. I would say the sweet spot to getting Omnislash as a balance of ease versus obtaining it early is right after you do Temple of the Ancients, which is why I'm doing it now. The reason for that being one simple thing. In the Temple of the Ancients, we got an item called the Ribbon, and the Ribbon is critical in Battle Square. What is Battle Square? Let's square that first off. Battle Square is a set of arenas. We did this once before as a favor to Dio. Now, when you first arrive in the Gold Saucer, you can't get in Battle Square because it's closed down for repairs. Once it becomes unlocked, you're able to enter a single character and have them fight a series of 8 rounds of battles. There's 2 reasons that this is actually difficult. Number 1 is because the character is completely by themselves. That means that other characters cannot save their ass in the event of them getting knocked out. If you get knocked out, you immediately lose. Not the game, but you lose that attempt at Battle Square. Number 2 is that as you progress between rounds, you have to roll a slot reel. On the slot reel is a random assortment of handicaps, and as you get further and further into a round of Battle Square, the more you rack up handicaps because they are all cumulative. These include things like negative status effects, statistical penalties, things like that can all just make it a lot harder. And when you combine the fact that you're alone versus the fact that you're obtaining all these handicaps, bad RNG or bad planning can really do you in. So one of the critical things that makes Battle Square a lot easier is to use a ribbon, because that'll negate all negative status effects. It's one of the best accessories in the game, probably many would consider the best, because when you don't have to worry about status effects, Battle Square becomes a lot easier, especially when it comes to Petrify. There are a few enemies available in Battle Square that can instantly cast Petrify on a character, and because Petrify lasts indefinitely, and you don't have any other characters to save you from it, if you get hit with a Petrify, you immediately lose. It's a one-hit loss, basically. It's not exactly a one-hit kill, but it's close enough. Now, as you complete rounds, you earn battle points, and these become greater and greater the more you go, the further you go into Battle Square. It starts off giving you really tiny amounts like 10, 25, 50 battle points, and eventually, when you complete all 8 rounds, you'll get anywhere from 8 to 13,000. One thing that makes Battle Square really tough, though, is that you lose all of your battle points the second you walk out of the main room. That means you have to get your prize that you're gunning for in one attempt. There's no save point inside, anything like that. You have to do it all at once. So, unless you're playing on an emulator or a PSP, which both have different versions of save states, I would recommend setting aside a lot of time so that you don't have to leave your console unattended or your PC unattended and leave your game running, in the event that you have to leave the game to do something else. Now, before we actually go into Battle Square, there's one thing we have to take care of, and that is obtaining enough GP to attempt Battle Square enough times to gain the prize that we're after. Every attempt at Battle Square costs 10 GP, and GP, of course, is the exclusive unit of currency inside of Gold Saucer. Later in the game, after you obtain the airship and the third round of prizes becomes unlocked, it's much easier to obtain GP, because at that point you're able to race your own chocobos. At this point in the game, though, we don't have that available, so we have to figure out how we're going to collect enough GP in order to go into Battle Square. Now, if you're new to it, even if you're not new to Battle Square, you might want to make sure that you stockpile a lot of GP just in case. I like to go in with about 150 GP, which is 15 attempts. But you could probably get away with 100 if you're good. If you're new, though, just to play it safe, make sure you go in with 150. And don't forget, you're going to want to save, obviously, before you attempt Battle Square in case you screw up. But if you're going to save inside the ropeway station, inside the Gold Saucer, it costs you an extra 5 GP. So you want to make sure that you have 155 at least before you go in, if that's the goal. If you want to go in with 150, make sure you have 155. Now, at this point on Disc 1, remember, we don't have any real easy ways of stockpiling GP. Later in the game, after we get the airship, we can either do Chocobo racing, or we can get the guy who will actually convert Gil into GP outside of the ropeway station. That guy doesn't appear on Disc 1, and also we can't race our own Chocobos on Disc 1. So we have a couple of options here on ways to get GP. Number 1 is to do Chocobo racing. This is very luck dependent. You can only bet on ranks C or B in this case at this point in the game, and you're always going to want to go with the highest rank you can, because those are going to offer the best rewards, which can be redeemed for more GP. The way that betting works in Chocobo races is you can place up to 3 bets, and the bets that you make are going to be a series of numbers, and it might be confusing to look at, but basically what you're looking at is each card that you can buy is 2 numbers. Those numbers are which chocobos are going to come in first and second. So if you bet on the 4-5 card, then you're guessing that Chocobo 4 and Chocobo 5 are going to be in first and second place. It doesn't matter which order they come in. If it's 5 and then 4, you still win. But this is basically all up to chance. You can look at the Chocobo stats on the side. You can see their top speed. You can see their stamina. But typically, it's all up to the jockey behavior rather than the Chocobo's actual stats. The Chocobo stats actually matter very little. It's really just luck of the draw. It really is. You can honestly just guess random cards and you have just as good a chance pretty much. Now, down below on that same screen, you're going to see the potential rewards. If you win, you are randomly awarded one of those rewards. The thing is, you can instead take the GP equivalent of that item, and that's what we're after here is GP. If you get really lucky, you can end up getting a couple of like 50 GP items at this rank. You can end up, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 items that are worth 150 GP, which will get you as much as you need in one go. But this is really rare. Personally, I don't like this method at all because it's far too luck based. And I don't seem to have very good luck. I seem to do better taking my time and the other method, which is in Wonder Square, the arcade. In the arcade, you have a few options as well. If you have inhumanly good timing, you can try Super Dunk. Super Dunk can very quickly get you the GP you need, but only if you're really good at it. The thing is you need to hold down the circle button for a very specific amount of time and then release it in order to have Cloud make the shot and not overshoot it. But it's so frame specific that I can't seem to get the hang of it. If you're better at it than I am, then go for it. Super Dunk is a really good way. You can actually, if you get 10 shots in a row, you have a chance to double down and earn double your GP or lose it all. But if you're good at it, this is a good way to get it. It's also very gil efficient. You won't spend a whole lot of money getting your 150 or however much GP you're going for. A much slower but much more reliable way is to do the motorcycle mini game. This one doesn't take a lot of practice to get good at, and you only need 10,000 score in the game in one round in order to get the GP reward that you need. Remember, if you haven't done this before, on the first time you get over 10,000, you'll also earn a speed source, but other than that, every time you get over 10,000 score on this game, you'll earn a clean 10 GP. And that means you're going to have to play this game 15 times in order to get 150 out of it, and that can take a while, but I personally passed the time with Netflix and just rolled this out as many times as possible. This is, in my opinion, the most reliable, easiest way to get 150 GP, but it is relatively time-consuming. Another option exists in this room. I'm not crazy about this one, but you can do the 3D Battler in order to get some more GP. This is a like sort of fighting game. It's really just rock, paper, scissors, and the thing is it's completely weighted against you because the computer actually calculates its move based on your input, and even though it does have a random factor to it, it basically makes it so that the further you get into the game in rounds, the more impossible it is to win, so you only have a 3% chance of even beating the third opponent. But if you do manage to beat the third opponent, he's worth a clean 30 GP. If you somehow manage to beat the fourth opponent, which is 0.0003% chance, then you can get 300 GP. Good luck. Don't forget, if you haven't done the Mog's House arcade game yet, you can win 30 GP by beating that once and then talking to the guy behind you. That's a good way to get 30 GP. Nice and clean, even though it does take a while. I wouldn't recommend doing the Wonder Catcher game. You can win a little bit of GP out of the crane machines, but it's only 1 GP or 3 GP. It's not really a big increment, and you know there's always a good chance that you're going to get nothing or a potion or something useless. If you have a turbo controller, you can do the arm wrestling game. If you beat the wrestler, you get 2 GP, and even though it costs 100 gil, it's not very gil efficient. You can get the GP a little bit more quickly if you just turbo control through the wrestler. I haven't timed it, but I would imagine you could probably beat the wrestler 5 times before you would complete a single game on the moto bike. So I would imagine that's more time efficient at least. But these are all options. You have Chocobo Racing and you have Wonder Square. Pick one or the other. I personally recommend Wonder Square and either doing the moto bike and just, you know, grinding it out, or get really good at Super Dunk. Those are your 2 best options at this point in the game, in my opinion. Once you have your GP, it's time to prepare for Battle Square. Make sure you save your game and get ready, because it can take quite a bit. Things you're going to want to equip to your character. Well, number 1, I wouldn't rely too heavily on magic materia, that is green materia. And there's a few reasons for this, the first and foremost being that 1, magic materia just simply isn't that good at this point in the game compared to enemy skills, and number 2, you will actually get more battle points if you purposely handicap yourself by removing your magic materia. More on that later. So I wouldn't rely too heavily on it, but it doesn't hurt to put some on there. If you're going to choose some magic materia to use, I would recommend equipping your character with probably a cure materia. If you know regen is very useful at this stage in the game, and you know, at least a cure too. Probably your most important materia is going to be your enemy skill materia. Make sure that you have the following enemy skills learned, and I'll put the locations of all of these in the description in case you did not learn them yet. Big Guard, White Wind, Level 4 Suicide, Trine, Aqualung, Magic Hammer, and Beta. All of them are extremely useful at different points. Some of them are just damaging abilities, others are more defensive magic, but they all come in handy at different points. And bonus, if you're missing one aside from Trine, it should be easy to get it because you now have the Tiny Bronco and you can get anywhere on the map relatively quickly. Make sure to equip your character with a counterattack, because that will result in free damage. Give them any HP plus materia that you might have at this point in the game. You may want to consider a powerful summon materia. Leviathan is a good choice because there aren't a whole lot of enemies that absorb water in Battle Arena. If you've done Temple of the Ancients, Bahamut is probably the best, because Bahamut is not only your most powerful summon at this point in the game, but is also non-elemental, meaning that there are no enemies that resist or absorb it. After that, you can fill out your character with just any sort of stat boosting materia you can use. You're normally going to want to boost at this point your physical stats. I recommend Command Materia, that gives you any sort of plus luck, plus dexterity, plus vitality. That's going to be like your throw materia, death blow materia, etc. Just read your materia and make sure that you choose the ones that are giving you statistical bonuses. Death blow is actually going to come in handy if you have a limit break, but you want to use a physical attack and you don't want to use your limit break just yet. Which character should you choose for this? I would recommend Cloud. He probably has your best limit breaks at this point in the game. He's probably your highest level. As for armor, you have a few options. If you have done the Temple of the Ancients, you can get more materia slots and good elemental defense by equipping the Dragon Armlet. If not, you can always go to Wutai and steal from the Adamanti, which will give you the Adamant Bangle, which only has 2 materia slots, but really solid physical defense. Keep in mind when choosing your armor that if you're playing any version except for the 2012 PC re-release, that The magic defense on your armor is not taken into account, and it simply does not matter. For your accessory, if you've done Temple of the Ancients, and again, this is the main reason I recommend doing this after Temple of the Ancients, then use your ribbon. The ribbon is incredibly, incredibly powerful, and it will make so many threats during this whole endeavor just completely non-existent. But if you don't have it, then you should have the gem ring from when you fought Materia Keeper, and that will prevent Paralyze, Petrify, and Slow Numb. Very, very useful thing to have because that'll stop you from instantly losing to any sort of paralysis. Make sure to equip that instead. If you have another favorite character other than Cloud that you just want to use just cause, you can probably get away with any character at this point in the game, but if they are underleveled for any reason, you may want to go outside, find a good grind spot like around Wutai or right outside Temple of the Ancients, and grind them up a bit there. Items that you should bring in include basically just X potions and ethers. If you have the ribbon, then you really don't need to worry about any sort of remedy or anything like that. But X potions can be farmed easily outside of Wutai. Ethers can be bought pretty much anywhere, and those will just keep your HP and MP up in the event that your materia gets disabled. Also, for the event that your materia gets disabled or you run out of MP, it'll be really handy to carry around some fire veils and some swift bolts, which can be bought at the Wutai item store. Also, if you did not get the ribbon yet, then you will want to carry around some status healing items, especially the Maiden's Kiss, which will cure the frog status, and an echo screen, which will cure the silent status, because those are the two that will prevent you from casting spells that would be able to otherwise heal all of the other status effects. It's not necessary to go in with a full limit break meter, but it will help if your limit meter is relatively high when you go in. Now, keep in mind that you're basically reset to the exact status you were when you went in Battle Square after you're done, so your limit meter will always remain at the same level every time you start. And that's going to mean if you are at like 2/3 meter, then you're going to have some time to build one up while still being able to throw out physical attacks over the course of one round. By the final stage, you should have built up 4 limits. This is another reason I recommend Cloud, because Cloud just has some of the best limit breaks in the game. If you have his level 3 limit break, that's going to make your life so much easier. Any single target enemy can almost guaranteed be killed by Meteor Rain, and any other groups of enemies will usually be killed by Finishing Touch unless they are immune to death. So if you're ever in trouble, you can just bust out a limit break. Finishing Touch can easily clean up any group of enemies. Meteor Rain can easily finish a fight very, very quickly. If you don't have Cloud's level 3 limit breaks, then Sid has some great limit breaks, Red 13 has some great limit breaks, Yuffie has some great limit breaks. Tifa's are not that great, they're not very versatile, and you can't control which enemies they hit in the event that you're using them on a group. Barrett has some great limit breaks. Basically look at what limit breaks you have available to you and make your choices based on that. I do not at all recommend either Eris, Kate Sith, or Vincent. Vincent's limit breaks cause him to lose control of himself for the rest of the match, and you won't be able to heal yourself. Eris does not have any powerful physical attacks at all, and Kate Sith's limit breaks are generally terrible, unless you know the exploit to 100% get his slots real limit break, which can instantly win any fight in the game. But that's obviously, if you know that trick, then you are probably not in need of this guide. Once you have your character selector prepared, head over to Battle Square and talk to the woman at the front counter. Remember that you're in for the long haul here, and if you leave this room, you'll immediately lose all of your battle points. If you're attempting this after the Tiny Bronco phase of the game, then your goal is 51,200 battle points for Omnislash. You can also go for the secondary prize, the championship belt, which is 25,600. Very, very useful at this point in the game. It also wouldn't hurt to pick up some of the independent materia that's available here. The Speed Plus will increase your dexterity stat and is worth 12,800 battle points. The preemptive materia will increase your chance of getting a preemptive battle, and that is 6,400. And the enemy lure will increase the amount of random battles you get into, which is useful when you're grinding, and that's a measly 800 battle points. Battle Square is a gauntlet of 8 rounds. In between each round, you'll spin a slot reel to determine your handicap for that round. The rounds get harder as you go on, and there's no opportunity to heal or use items in between. You'll get no battle points if you flee in the middle of battle or if you're knocked out, and you'll only gain battle points if you either win all 8 rounds or manually choose to leave after a round is completed. There is an exception to this though. Battle points are only calculated off of which handicaps you receive, not off of which rounds you win. Also, if you escape the fight via non-conventional means, it doesn't count as losing, so you still get the full amount of BP while being able to skip the final round. The only way to do this are either the exit materia, which has the escape command and can be bought in Rocket Town, or using a smoke bomb item. Again, in order to get full BP, you can only use this on the very last fight, but it does allow you to skip the potentially most difficult fight of the round. When you start, you'll have a few rounds to get yourself going. The first fights are not difficult at all, and most enemies can be one-shot with an enemy skill as weak as Trine. At some point during these easy early rounds, you'll probably want to leave one enemy alive and take time to set up Big Guard. Big Guard costs a lot of MP, but will set up Barrier, M-Barrier, and Haste. All of these effects last throughout rounds. The Barrier and M-Barrier will wear off very quickly, but the Haste will stay on throughout the entire match unless one of the enemies slows you. This is very useful because it will allow you to do more damage and kill enemies more quickly, but it will also allow you to pull off any emergency heals more quickly. Whenever your health gets low, consider using either a heal spell, White Wind, or an X potion, and against enemies that you know will hit very hard, make sure to recast Big Guard to put up your barrier again. Keep an eye out for any enemies that have a high amount of MP that can be sacked with Magic Hammer, but also don't deal a lot of damage. A good example is Sneaky Step. They have 65 MP each. They appear in groups of 3, they don't do a ton of damage, and the only threatening ability they have is Death Sentence, which you should be immune to if you have the ribbon, and if you don't, Death Sentence will run out anyway once you complete the round. Enemies to watch out for. The Joker can be encountered in round 1. Normally these guys aren't an issue at all, but they do have a small chance when they throw a card to cast Joker on you, which is an instant kill. Basically, don't waste any time against these guys because you never want to take a chance. Just kill them as soon as possible. Gagi Gandhi, which are the green dragon type things, can appear in round 2, and the only reason they might be threatening is if you're not using a ribbon, they can cast Slow Petrify on your character. Now, unlike Death Sentence, this won't automatically cure itself between rounds, so you'll have to take the time to dispel that, usually with White Wind or a Soft. In round 2, if you see a Crown Lance, which looks like a giant jellyfish, and you don't have a ribbon on, kill this thing as soon as humanly possible. It can instantly petrify your character, and since Petrify doesn't run out, and you don't have any teammates to cure it off of you, it instantly counts as a loss. This means even though it's only in round 2, and it only has a small amount of HP, it can one-shot kill you. Don't mess around, just kill it. In round 3, you might run into the Kamara bug. These guys can cast Stop on your character, and this does affect you even if you have a ribbon on, so it's very annoying. Stop is not as bad as Petrify, but it has the same effect, which is you can't take any action while you're under the effect of Stop. The difference is Stop runs out automatically on its own, so you will be able to take action eventually. They don't do a ton of damage, but especially if you get 2 of them in the same round, they will just sit there and use Stop Web on you as many times as possible and just beat on you and slowly whittle you down. So, as with the other threatening monsters in Battle Square, don't waste any time, just kill them as soon as possible. Also in round 3, you may run into the Flower Prong, which is an enemy that's unique to Battle Square. If you don't have a ribbon on, it can use Bio 2, which will deal a ton of damage, and if you let it get out of the ground, it can use W Laser, which also deals a ton of damage. So basically, like everything else, kill it as quickly as possible. It's weak to both Fire and Earth, so either Fire 2, Beta, Quake 2, or the Ifrit or Titan summons will all serve to kill it very quickly. In round 4, the Bag Risk enemy can inflict Petrify as well, kill it as soon as possible. In round 4, you might run into the Griffin. The only reason this is a little bit threatening is because it can drain your MP, which can be a big pain in the ass to recover from later. So the first thing I recommend doing is casting a Magic Hammer. A single Magic Hammer will completely drain its MP, and without MP, it can't cast its MP draining ability. It also doesn't hit very hard, so once you've removed that threat, you're free to basically just do whatever you want to this thing, and that includes taking the time to set up some support spells, or heal up, restore your MP with items, whatever you need to do. If you run into a purple winged demon thingy called Valron, it appears in either a group of 1 with several other non-threatening monsters, or in even worse, a group of 3. These things are actually just pretty much really threatening. They're capable of dealing a ton of damage with physical attacks. They can use Demi 3, which will reduce your HP by 75%, and on top of that, they have a decent amount of HP and can't be one-shot by Beta or Aqualung or any other enemy skills you have at this point in the game. Your best bet is probably casting Big Guard or Barrier to cut down the damage of their physical attacks, since Demi 3 actually can't kill you on its own, and then either chain cast Aqualung or use a powerful summon like Bahamut. This will bring us to the 8th battle, where things could either get really tough or end very smoothly. The zoo enemy is pretty much a free win. It doesn't deal a ton of damage, and it doesn't even have its special ability that it has in the wild, where it's considered a long-range monster, which would limit your attacking options with a melee character. The only thing that can kind of make it challenging is if you have pretty much everything disabled except for your attack and you're low on health, because it does have a fair amount of HP. Yin and Yang are probably the most threatening boss that you can encounter on the final round. This is because if the Yang side runs out of MP before you manage to kill it, it'll perform a suicide attack and will probably instantly kill you. So basically it's a race to kill Yang before he expends his own MP. Thing is, Yang has very high magic defense, so basically pummel him as hard as you can with physical attacks, and hopefully your weapon wasn't broken via the slot reel earlier in the round. Killing Yang will also kill Ying, and that'll end the fight. The other boss that's actually fairly threatening is the Dragon. It deals a shitload of damage, and it just all around is not a pleasant fight. Flamethrower can deal a decent amount of damage, but what you should really be looking out for is its bite attack, which seems to have a really high critical hit chance. When it crits, it can deal somewhere around 2,000 damage, and that can be a serious problem, so always keep your character topped up and make sure that barrier is up at all times. There is a trick to beating him pretty easily though. He's level 32, which of course means he's susceptible to level 4 suicide, which will drop him to 1/32 of his health. Finally, there's Giro Felgo. If you see Giro Felgo, good job, you've won. This is the easiest boss that they could have possibly put as the final boss in Battle Square, and I don't know why he even is one. If you have either Laser or Demi 2, that will instantly kill him. They normally deal 1/2 of the enemy's current HP, but Giro Felgo is weak to gravity magic, so it deals 100%. Even if your materia has been disabled though, trading physical attacks with him will usually result in a victory. Now let's talk about the slot reels. The slot reels have a wide variety of handicaps that can be inflicted upon your character in between rounds. These handicaps will be the largest factor in your success or your failure. Additionally, you really need to pay attention to which ones you're getting, because which handicaps you receive will also determine how much BP you get. The thing is, your BP increases exponentially in between each round. So really, your handicap BP gains are only noticeable for the last 2 rounds, rounds 7 and 8. For those rounds, you're going to want to aim for the handicaps that net the most BP, as long as you can afford it. We'll talk more about this in just a second. For now, let's go over what all of the handicaps are and what exactly they do. The Poison, Toad, and Minimum slot reels are pretty self-explanatory. They inflict the corresponding status effect on your character. If you have a ribbon, the effect will be negated. Half Speed looks like it may be a status effect as well, but it's actually not. It's not a slow spell being cast on your character. It literally cuts your speed stat in half, so there's no way of preventing this. This is generally not a good handicap to take, but if you are forced to, if it's the least terrible thing on the reel, it's not that bad. You can usually mitigate it with a haste spell. Time times 30 damage will deal damage to you based on how long you've been fighting. This can generally be a nuisance because it'll often leave you at low health if you get it during a later phase. Try to steer away from this one if you can control it if you're on a later round. Keep in mind this can't kill you, but if it leaves you at 1 HP and your enemies have a good starting ATB, this could end up killing you. Item command is sealed is a pretty self-explanatory one. You just can't use items. This is actually fairly detrimental because you can't use items as your last-ditch effort to regain HP or MP, or to cure a status effect, or to even deal damage to your enemies with some thrown items. I try to avoid this one whenever possible. Weapon is broken will cause your attacks to deal a lot less damage. This can really hurt if you rely heavily on physical attacks, and it's not only limited to just your attack, it also affects things like Death Blow, Mug, Morph, etc. Armor is broken will make it as though you have not equipped an armor. This will not only be a huge detriment to your defense, but I believe it also removes any sort of elemental immunity or absorption that your armor may have. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that is true. It does not affect your equipped materia though. Accessories broken will completely disable your accessory. This can be extremely detrimental if you're using a ribbon, because all of a sudden, status effects are a problem again, baby. Next, we have something for all of the materias. We have Summon, Command, Magic, Independent, and Support materia is broken. If you get any of those, then any of those materias you have equipped will automatically be disabled, not only for their command, but also any statistical bonuses that they gave you will also be disabled. That leads to all materia is broken, which does exactly what it sounds like. All materia no longer works until the end of the battle. Some of these aren't too bad. You can often get by without your independent materia or your support materia, and often your summon materia. They can work to your advantage though. All Materia is Broken and Magic Materia is Broken are the two handicaps with the highest BP payout. So if at all possible, use the last two handicaps to grab both All Materia is Broken and Magic Materia is Broken, as long as you think you can complete the fight without either of those things. Half HP will reduce your maximum HP by half, although it does not touch your current HP total, and half MP does the same thing for your MP total. Half HP and MP obviously does the same for both. You can often get away with 1 half HP without suffering too much detriment, but any more than that and you're in danger of getting one-shot by a lot of the enemies in Battle Arena. Same goes for half MP. You can usually survive one just fine, but any more than that and you're going to have trouble keeping your MP up high enough to cast critical spells like Big Guard, which is very MP expensive. 0 MP is kind of tough. It immediately reduces your MP to 0, but that's only your current MP. Your maximum MP is not touched, unlike with half MP. The only thing that really makes this tough is that your only way of recovering MP is via items. So if you get 0 MP and your items are disabled, then this is basically the equivalent of having all of your magic, summon, and enemy skill materia disabled. It sucks. Down 5 levels and down 10 levels do exactly what it sounds like. It lowers your character's level. What does that affect? Only your stats. If you only get 1 or 2 of these, it's kind of hard to even notice that there's a difference because only your base stats are reduced. But if you start to get a couple of down 10 levels or even like 3 down 5 levels, you can actually start to notice a difference, and it can be somewhat detrimental. Finally, there are the 2 best handicaps to get, which is the Cure and the Lucky 7s. Cure is actually the best handicap to get on early stages, even though it offers pretty much no points as far as payout goes. You do get a full restore on your health. As for Lucky 7, it sounds a lot better than it actually is, but Lucky 7 just means you don't have any handicap whatsoever for that round. So just to reiterate, All Materia and Magic Materia is Broken are the best handicaps you can receive in terms of BP payout, as long as you think you can finish the fight without those things. On round 8, All Materia is Broken is worth a whopping 10,000 BP, and Magic Materia is Broken is worth an almost equally impressive 9,425. Other notable handicaps are Weapon is Broken is worth 8,246, Item Command is Sealed is worth 7,201, and Independent Materia is Broken is worth 6,645. So I kept mentioning that you should be going for certain handicaps, but how do you do that? It is possible just to get really good at the timing if your eyes are quick enough to follow the slot reels as they spin, but there is a trick that can make this easier. It takes a little bit of practice, but try hitting square while the slot reels are spinning. Every time you hit square, the box disappears. What you don't see when it disappears though is that this also pauses the slot reels from spinning. Because there are only 3 options per slot reel, this means it's very easy to manipulate which handicap you get out of the 3 that you have available to you each round. When you hit square, sort of look at it as a snapshot of what position the reel currently is in, and if it's not in a favorable position to get you the handicap that you want, release square and tap it again. When the handicap that you want is coming up next, then you should release square and hit circle as quickly as possible. It does take some practice, but you can master this skill pretty quickly, but it is by far the most important skill you can have in trying to get the prizes you want out of Battle Square. Now, if you want all the best stuff that Battle Square has to offer at this point in the game, you're going to need 89,600 battle points. That's quite a tall order, and this can take you a few hours, especially if you're not very good at it yet. But if you just want the bare minimum, you want to leave with just Omnislash, then go ahead and rack up 51,200. The thing is, because you get so many battle points out of a single run of Battle Square, it's a very low chance that you're going to come out with exactly how much you need. You're probably going to have some left over. You have a couple of options for your what I call Changemaker prizes, which can basically be used with the remainder of your battle points before you leave, since you lose all your battle points once you leave this room anyway. The S-Mine and the Birdwing are damage items that aren't really worth it, and the Mimic Greens can be bought very cheaply at Chocobo Bill's Ranch. The Remedy is a fairly rare item at this stage in the game that can remove any status effect from any character. It can be pretty handy, and it's only 200 BP, so you can stockpile a lot of these at this point. Once you're done, head out of the room and you will lose all your remaining battle points, but there is one last prize to be had. For beating your first 8 rounds, go down and talk to the woman at the bottom of the stairs, and she will be impressed and reward you with some sprint shoes. This is an accessory that instantly casts haste on any member of the party that they're equipped to, and you don't really encounter them anywhere else until later in the game. So that is it, the easiest way, in my opinion, to get Omnislash on Disc 1 And what kind of guide would this be if I didn't show you guys exactly what I was talking about by running through Battle Square once with Cloud and ending, of course, with our prize, Omnislash. Enjoy.